season opens 2 weeks from today. Do you like where you are? Are you pretty happy with where you are at this point in camp?
Yeah, I mean, even for facing the same team 3 times in a row, you don't really see that too often. And spring, just the way that it goes. It's always obviously different guys, and there's the same guys every time because it's spring, so I'm always going to travel. But I like where my stuff's at. Figure it out in between here.
Anyone who follows the Cardinals know that the biggest question is pitching, and that pitching revolves around, do they have an ace? And that means Jack Flaherty. So Flaherty's numbers threw 80 pitches yesterday, 4 1/3, gave up 7 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned, walked 2, struck out 3, had some good moments, but overall it was kind of a meh. Like you'd hope he would be ahead of where he is right now. Let's hear from Jack about his outing yesterday.
Just kind of all over the place, looked up and had more balls and strikes for most of the time out there. It didn't feel that way early, and then it kind of just kept adding on to that. Just was, fastball command wasn't great, wasn't able to pitch in well, couldn't land my curveball for the most part, was fighting it, but otherwise, all you can do is try to induce weak contact at that point, and but you just start running up pitch count. The team that was aggressive the first 2 times kind of weighted me out a little bit more today, just probably due to struggle with command a little bit. I felt like I've had command of everything so far up until today, and even the last bullpen felt good. Just I was one of those where kind of hopeless today.
All right, so
Jack Flaherty.
He was kind of meh, too. Didn't have command of his fastball. Like I said, 3 strikeouts, had some moments. Doesn't look like the ace yet. Still a work in progress, but time's a wasting, boys.
It's the type of outing that the spring's for, though, right? I mean, you go out there and you work through things and figure it out. I mean, that's what I hope to see from. If he breezes through all of spring and then gets into the regular season and starts to hit those bumps, that's when you don't want to see it happen. So you hope that you have those outings, you work through it, you get touched up a bit, and then come back out. I mean, every time he's on the mound is important for where he's at. I mean, you've got your other 2 guys that are out in the WBC and figuring out what that means. Steven Matz, I feel like he's answering questions. He's doing what he's doing. Montgomery's kind of, I don't think it's blowing the walls off the spring, but I mean, you feel like you got a better grasp of what he's going to be. But the biggest wild card is still Flaherty. And I think he's the guy that's the pivot point in the rotation right now.
You got to have an ace. He's an ace when he's right. Question is he right? Is he over his injury stuff? Like yesterday's outing was one of those things I always say. I'm a rights holder, so I look at it and go, he was working on some things. He's working on some things. But if you're a hater, you go, that's an ace. We're in trouble.
Well, I'm neither. I'm neither a hater, nor am I saying he's going to be the Cy Young Award winner.
You're a monetizer.
No, I'm a realist. But I do think for the Cardinals to be really good, he has to be an ace. So I do think that the spring is very important, and I did want to see him dominate this spring. And I think we've seen an okay pitcher. We've seen some good stretches. But we've seen, look, I'm not saying that Jack Flaherty is going to have a 4 ERA for the Cardinals this year. Maybe he does, though. But if he does, then to me, the Cardinals have about 4 or 5 guys that are all the same-ish. They're all like 3s.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a 2. Maybe an upside 2.
Well, no, I mean, Flaherty
I'm talking
can be a 1.
I'm talking about Michaelis. Michaelis separates a bit.
I think Michaelis...
He's a 2.
Well, I think on a really good team, Michaelis, you feel good if he's your 3. Still in the playoffs, if Michaelis is your 2 and he matches up against Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander, again, I'm comparing them to the elite teams, not the Pirates, not the Cubs.
How many of the elite teams do we feel like have went out and done that double ace approach? The Mets have.
Well, how about the team that beat them last year? All I'm saying is on paper, when you line up and you say Quintana Wheeler and you see Michaelis Nola, you feel better on the Phillies side. I think that's fair.
Okay.
And it was a sweep.
Okay.
I'm not blaming everything on Miles Michaelis and Jose Quintana at all. I'm just saying I feel a lot better. We like to gamble. I'm gambling on the Phillies.
I think to the point that you make is that when you get to game 3 of a situation like that, it swings pretty dramatically in the Cardinals' space at that point.
If you get there.
Right. So I'm just saying that when you're looking at it in a, not necessarily in a playoff standpoint, when you're looking at trying to win games here in the regular season, that the Cardinals day in and day out, I feel like are going to be able to compete across the board more with teams where they have guys that can pitch up to the 1 level, but definitely are pitching over the level of 4s and 5s.
And if you're talking about the front of the rotation, if you have a healthy Flaherty who's an ace, and you're saying it's Flaherty and Michaelis, I'd feel pretty good about that against matchups, even with the good teams. Yeah, there's others that'll have a better 1-2 punch, but I'd feel pretty good about that if your ace is back to being your ace.
Yeah, I just think we'll see. I was hoping Flaherty would just be really, really sharp, and maybe he still can be, and he'll figure it out. He needs to stay healthy, but so far, I think he's been a bit of a disappointment this spring, just slightly.
I'd say that's
and maybe it's not fair that I wanted him to come out there and have more than a strikeout per inning and have an ERA of 1.3 in the spring. Maybe that's unfair, but I think coming off all the injuries, I would love to just feel really, really good about Jack Flaherty. And right now, I'm kind of more meh.
I think that's fair. That's fair. I think Cardinal fans look at it and go, yeah, I wish he looked to be more dominant, like he's going to hit the ground running in the regular season, which he still may. We don't know, but I think that's fair.
Well, let's go back to like what we talked about, earlier this hour, is that the questions are answered for the most part in the everyday portion of things. It's just about where the chips fall now at this point. It's the opposite of that for a lot of good reasons on the pitching side. I think in the bullpen, you definitely have a lot of things you got to sort out, and we talked about that a lot yesterday. But, yeah, there's 2 weeks left in camp still. A week and a half left in camp still. And this means that next week those outings are going to be really important. And that, like every year, a few things are going to spill over into the regular season. And those first few starts are going to be really important. You just want to – I want to see the stuff. I want to see how it's looking. I want to see how sharp it's going to be. And then, you'll still be working through a few things that are there. And I think we all knew, if we're keeping it real, that that's what this pitching staff was going to be this year. That probably the only guy that you broke camp, 2 guys probably you broke camp knowing what they were going to be, I feel like was Michaelis and Montgomery. And after that, you just got to see.
A lot of question marks.
Yeah.
Kind of exactly as we started spring training with, except I think for the most part, folks feel pretty good about their lineup, right?
Well, I think that the difference for that, when I started spring training, was I hope everybody got through it. And there's still time to get for that to change, obviously. You hope it doesn't. But I feel good with some of the track records we have with the guys here. If we can get all these guys to the regular season, I feel great about that. And that's going to give the opportunity to see what you've got at that point. And you still got plenty of options if it doesn't pan out or if somebody goes down to keep those guys going. I think bullpen management is going to be maybe the biggest challenge that Ali has coming into this year, and how that works and how you keep these guys sharp and in the mix.
And I think World Baseball Classic has kind of gotten in the way because guys aren't getting a ton of it. Like Tyler O'Neill has looked good with Team Canada, but we haven't seen him a whole bunch, right? Because they've only played a few games. But he's looked good, so you feel good about that. Walker has been a monster. You feel good about that. Gorman has hit. So you feel good about that. Those are 3 of the question marks we had going into spring training, what they'll be. Certainly we don't have all the answers. But like I said, I think Cardinal fans generally feel pretty good about the lineup based on what we've seen from some of the guys who were question marks.
And I think that's a good point to bring up, kind of the question marks and which ones have been answered so far, whether it's a positive answer or a negative answer. So Walker obviously has forced his way on this roster. So far, Paul DeJong, we talked about it a lot last segment. You're just saying, what the hell do you do with this guy? Dylan Carlson has slugged a little bit, but he's another question mark where I think coming in, he's now put himself in the spot because this position player group is so deep that he may not start opening day. And I understand he's going to play a lot, so I'm not worried about that. But again, you're having dudes like O'Neill and Nootbaar and Gorman and Walker who are pushing him out. Mm-hmm. That's what you want, though. Mm-hmm. Whoever hits is going to play. We said that all along. If Dylan Carlson hits, he's going to get 500 plate appearances. If he doesn't, maybe he gets 350.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. If we're going to talk about anything in the everyday roster, we do know who's going to most likely be on it. We still don't know exactly what we're going to get from it, and in multiple places in the outfield. You always had the what if about a young guy like Walker, but I don't love the idea that I still have what-ifs about, Tyler O'Neill or Dylan Carlson, or I feel most confident in Newt and where the expectations are for him from the entire group. So, who knows what that really means and plays out as.
Did you see the TV numbers for the World Baseball Classic? Like one of the games with Japan was like more than World Series numbers.
Was that here?
No, I don't think that was. No,
No, what I'm saying is
ratings.
the ratings in the United States of America.
I don't. I just saw the numbers, so
Okay.
maybe they weren't. But like, I get it. Like, it's important. But if you're a Cardinal fan, so I've always said the World Baseball Classic is a good thing. But if you're a Cardinal fan, yeah, you love seeing Newt do the pepper grinder for Team Japan, or you like seeing Tyler O'Neill go 4 for 4. But the truth is, you'd rather see him do it in the regular season when it means something to your ball club. So I do think some of the numbers can be a little misleading.
You'd also not like to see Newt all of a sudden sprain his wrist doing the pepper grinder, and then he's out for the season. That wouldn't happen. But like Edwin Diaz.
Okay, Cam.
Look, you can say, but hold on. You can say, oh, it's different when it's not your guy. If you're a Mets fan, you're really pissed right now. Take the best Cardinals player in the WBC and just replace Arenado or Goldschmidt. I'm not saying it's apples to apples, but Edwin Diaz, the best closer in baseball, makes $20 million a year.
Key component.
So whoever it is, just say Miles Michaelis, all of a sudden is injured and is out for the whole year from the WBC. I know it's fluky. Nobody expected it. Somebody thought maybe somebody hurts an arm, a shoulder. Nobody expects a celebration, but still, if you're a Mets fan, you're really pissed right now. And if you're a Cardinals fan and that thing happened to Goldie, Arenado, Michaelis, whatever, you're ticked.
Yeah, it would be. But it is, I hate the phrase because it is what it is. Like, what are you supposed to do? You can't put these guys in bubble wrap.
No.
But, as I said, if I were a team GM or a president of baseball operations, I would be very leery about having any pitcher be in the World Baseball Classic because and obviously with Diaz, that was a fluke. But I'm saying, generally speaking, I would say the chance of having an injured arm from a pitcher more likely than anything else.
But we don't celebrate wins in the Grapefruit League. So that's why there'd be no celebration injuries because nobody cares. People do care about the WBC.
Do you think that this Diaz injury, though, and the nature of it happened with him not competing when it happened, and when it did, is going to lead to anybody saying next time this comes around now?
No, I think it'll always look. The World Baseball Classic, it is a cool thing. This is very flukish. I do think big picture, throwing really competitive adrenaline innings in March. If I'm a GM or an owner of the team, I don't love that, but I get it.